The first of the major oxygen-containing functional groups that we're going to talk about are alcohols. Alcohols have an OH group. This R is just any carbon chain attached to the OH. The suffix or the ending of alcohols when naming them is ol, O-L. And here's an easy example. There's one carbon in the chain and it's an alcohol, so we'll call it methanol with the suffix OL. Next are ethers, where there's an oxygen bridge connecting two carbon chains. When we're talking about IUPAC names, which is the naming convention that we generally use, there's no actual suffix in ethers. But the main thing you have to remember is the word oxy. An example of an ether is methoxyethane, where in front of the oxy, the meth is the shortest carbon chain, which in this case is one carbon. And after the oxy is the longer carbon chain, the parent chain, which is ethane over here. So we would call this compound methoxyethane. The next functional group are aldehydes. Aldehydes have a carbonyl, which is a double bonded oxygen to this carbon here. But the thing with aldehydes is the carbonyl is always on a terminal carbon at the end of the carbon chain. The suffix of aldehydes is al, al. Remember, don't get it mixed up with ol, which is in alcohols. An example of an aldehyde is this over here, ethanal. There's two carbons, and therefore this carbonyl group has to be on a terminal carbon, making it an aldehyde. Next are ketones, which is actually very similar to aldehydes. The only difference is that this carbonyl group, instead of being on a terminal carbon like they are in aldehydes, this carbonyl group is in a central carbon within the carbon chain. The suffix of ketones is one, O-N-E. And an example of a ketone is propanone, where the carbonyl group is in the carbon chain. In other words, the carbonyl is not on a terminal carbon. Next are carboxylic acids. Carboxylic acids have both a carbonyl group and an OH group attached to the terminal carbon. The suffix is oic acid, and an example of this is ethanoic acid. There's two carbons, and the OH group and the carbonyl group are attached to this terminal carbon over here. Lastly, there's esters. Esters are similar to ethers in the sense that they have an oxygen bridge over here, but they have a carbonyl group on the adjacent carbon. The suffix of esters is O8. And here's an example over here. It's a little bit more complicated to name. The methyl is referring to the carbon chain without the carbonyl group, so on this side over here. And ethanoate is referring to the carbon chain with the carbonyl group, so this chain over here. So we would call this methyl ethanoate. This is a brief overview of the main oxygen-containing functional groups. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and also subscribe to The Chemistry Kid for more.